spent a lot of my childhood in the backseat of a car, driving the 6-hour stretch of I-10 between my home in Texas and my family in Louisiana. And of course, in the pre-iPad days, my only source of entertainment was looking out the window. And as a little kid, you can really only see like telephone poles and billboards and flags. That drive is as flat as it is boring. But there are two major visual changes that you will notice as a child. First of all of the billboards suddenly become about casinos as you get close to Louisiana, so you know you're close. But then the big one, and the one that fascinated me as a kid, and the one that I'm still fascinated by to this day, was the flags. Because in Texas, there are a lot of flags. More Texas flags than United States ones usually. But then as you cross the Sabine River Bridge over into Louisiana, you just stop seeing flags altogether. Certainly not Louisiana ones. I'd get to my family's home, and they didn't fly Louisiana flags either. So I kind of grew up wondering, are they just like not proud to be from Louisiana? And that's not the case. They think Louisiana is the greatest place in the country. They've never been to Utah. Right? I like to think that this monotonous back and forth drive really shaped me as a person because I grew up, I became a designer, but I also became a vexillologist, a researcher of flags, and a vexillographer when you put those together, a designer of flags. So at Texas A&M, where I work and where I live, I gave a TED Talk about a year ago about flags. That's why I was invited here today. And in it, I started with a quote. And I'm going to start with that same quote, but then today I'm going to take it a completely different place. So Wally Allens, he's the father of what we call nation branding. And what he said was, people want to belong. And then they want to display symbols of belonging. We all feel this. Everyone wants to be part of a tribe, whether that's your family unit or your, church or sports team, whatever it may be. But I'm fascinated by the second part. As a designer, I'm like, why do we choose these symbols to display our belonging? What makes them good or bad? In the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about the relationship between three things: personal identity, flags, and sports brands. Now, unless you're a professional athlete, it would be a bit weird for you to have your own personal logo, right? And I can almost guarantee that no one in this room or anybody watching has their own personal flag that they fly outside of their house. That would be weird even for me, okay? Instead, most of us, we use existing symbols and we adopt them as part of who we are. But more importantly, we adopt them because we want to display them and get people to perceive us in a certain way. They are communication. Design is communication. That's what separates design and art. Design can be successful or unsuccessful. But a lot of people don't make that connection that flags are design. Flags can be successful, they can be well adopted and used and recognized, and they can be unsuccessful when the tribe doesn't want to display them as symbols of belonging, because usually they're pretty ugly or something, So after years of childhood backseat boredom, I've traveled the country myself. I've gotten to see how lots of states display their pride and belonging. And I've come up with this theory. It's simple to understand. I call it the pride funnel. Basically, you take the largest tribe, the nation, and you work your way down to the smaller and smaller sub-tribes. And someone's personal identity usually flows in this pattern as well. To illustrate this, we'll make up a fake person. We'll call him Dan. Dan lives in Denver, Colorado. He's a Colorado Avalanche fan. But, that's not core to who Dan is. You know Dan. If the Avalanche lose a few times, have some losing seasons, he might just stop liking hockey. That's fine. But he's always proud to be from Denver. He can't change that about himself. And he's proud to be from Colorado, more than that, because Colorado's got some great things outside of Denver. And then, of course, all of us can relate, when there's like a World Cup or a war, no matter what state you're from, we unite as a nation, as the larger tribe. So this is easy to understand. But I'm fascinated by that second part. How do flags fit into this and either flow correctly or completely mess this whole thing up? So these are some well-designed flags. Not just because they follow the rules of flag design. Most of you could name every single one of these. But they're successful because they also flow down the pride funnel. So the sports teams in those states, they adopt some of the symbolism and colors of those states. And why? Because there's embedded emotional attachment to those state flags, and the teams can utilize that. That can increase fan loyalty and ticket sales and merch, etc. So let's use the Colorado Avalanche again. They're my favorite hockey team. I don't know if you all figured that out yet. So when they started, they didn't really have any Colorado symbolism in their stuff. But see, they had this weird foot on their shoulder, and they changed that to the Colorado Sea over time. And now they have full-on alternate uniforms that are Colorado themed, like the hat I'm wearing today. Nowhere is this like calling to state symbolism more important than in college sports where I work. Because in college, you are competing against other universities for fans and for recruits. So being the premier team in your state is super important. This here on the left, this is Texas Tech. They use the Texas flag on their uniforms. Now, I said, I'm from Texas. I'm fighting Texas Aggie, the other type of Aggies. And when I see this, I have a positive feeling because I like the Texas flag, but I feel weird rooting against Texas Tech in this situation, though I always will. Right? Indiana here. Indiana, they're recruiting against Purdue and Notre Dame, and so they want to be Indiana's team. So they put Indiana's flag on their helmet sometimes. And of course, their name is the Hoosiers. They take the whole state's demonym and they make it their team nickname. And then, of course, Maryland. Love it or hate it, they use their state flag on their uniforms more than really anybody. I like it. I'm a flag nerd. I can understand why people don't. But you see, some schools, they just can't do this, even if they tried. Here's Oregon, the Oregon Ducks. Doesn't look like Oregon, because it's a throwback uniform. It's cool. But the thing that doesn't work here is not the uniform. It's great. It's the flag. The flag of Oregon does not translate, does not communicate what it needs to. In fact, I would argue that the Oregon Ducks logo, or the state shape of Oregon, they're more identifiable symbols of Oregon than the flag itself. Some teams will even go as far as to redesign their state flag just to fix this problem. When the Florida Panthers rebranded, they just went ahead and fixed Florida's flag as well. They took the seal out and they threw in a sun for the Sunshine State. I like this. I think this is a great Florida flag. But by far the most common case we see is whenever there's a bad flag at the state or the city level or both, these passionate citizens, they want to belong. They want to display symbols of belonging. So they will go down the pride funnel, they'll grab something from the team level, a logo, a color, whatever, they'll bring it up with them, and this team will fill this identity void that is left, like here in Los Angeles. But by far the biggest example of this is New York City. New York City's flag is terrible. Most of you have never seen it before. That's crazy. The flag of New York State's even worse. So if I'm a passionate New Yorker and I want to get a tattoo, what would I get? I could go to the Yankees logo, I Heart New York, Statue of Liberty, Big Apple, Skyline. There's so many things, but there's not that one thing. Like Chicago, for instance. Everybody's got a Chicago flag tattoo. I'm surprised I don't have a Chicago flag tattoo. But so what? What are these states losing? Are they losing anything by not having a good flag? Well, they're not losing anything that governments really care about, that's for sure. Because unlike a sports team, you don't pay your taxes based on how much you identify with or like your state. Though I think that would be a pretty cool tax policy. No, these politicians, they're not going to go out of their way through the bureaucracy and the red tape to fix even the ugliest state flag because it just doesn't benefit them that much. And for the public, it's usually a flag design contest, and they want to get everybody's opinions. You submit something, yours doesn't get picked, obviously. Then they start piecemealing them all together, taking the best things from everybody's, and it becomes this sort of Frankenstein thing that's certainly different, but not better. So why am I saying all this? Well, it's because I did something about it. So during the pandemic, I started a flag company, Flags for Good, and I just went ahead and did the thing that my childhood self would want me to do, and I just started redesigning all the U.S. state flags that I didn't like. And I wanted to show you some of them. So, this is Colorado. We've already established great flag. I give it an A-. There's one thing that bugs me really bad about this one, and it's the little tips of the C. Why are they not touching that white line? So I just went ahead and fixed it. And print this, and now design-conscious Coloradans can go and fly this anytime they want. Oklahoma. This has some potential. This indigenous shield's really cool. It needs to be simplified. The words need to leave. But what's cool about Oklahoma is at the city level, they actually have a great flag. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, they have this beautiful flag. They've already rendered this indigenous shield in a very simple and elegant way. So in an example of good design going up the pride funnel, we'll take that, we'll throw in some historical flags of Oklahoma, and I think we've got a better Oklahoma flag here. No legislature needed. People can just go fly this right now. Louisiana. You know, there's so much culture, so much color, so much history in Louisiana. This current flag doesn't show any of that. And so I started with purple. Purple is a color that is not used in flag design very much, so I thought that was cool. I did a gold fly edge, so it flaps in the wind, and I threw a fleur-de-lis on there. Better flag of Louisiana. And of course, I gave some to my family so they could finally display their Louisiana pride. But I wanted to end with Utah. I'm honored to be invited here to speak. I love Utah. I come here as much as I can. And I wanted to get this one right. There's actually been some current talk about redesigning the Utah flag. In fact, yesterday, some legislation got passed, so there is progress. And that's great, because Utah has so much to draw from. But even like your NBA team has a name left over from when they were in New Orleans where jazz made a heck of a lot more sense. So, to redesign Utah's flag, I started with some of my experiences here. I started with this red earth, this iconic red earth. And out of the earth comes 5 white peaks. White for salt, for the purity of heart here, and for the best snow on earth. And then, instead of the beehive, I departed a little bit from that, which could be controversial, but I went with a honeycomb, a golden honeycomb. It's the product of the beehive, and it's a more elegant shape, easier to use in different applications. So, this state, Utah, deserves a flag where Utahns can be proud to show their belonging to this wonderful place. And this isn't just to benefit like souvenir shops or so you guys can have cool stickers for your snowboards, which all of you should have gotten in your welcome packets, right? But no, as we've seen, states with well-designed flags, they don't necessarily have more state pride, but they do own their visual story. Their visual identity is not tied up in a sports team or whatever else. I'm not saying that this needs to be the final flag of Utah. I'm not. But I am saying... But I do hope that by making these better state flags and putting them out into the world, it sparks conversation from the public and politicians alike to come together and want something more, want something better. Thanks.